Good afternoon, Coestamers. This is Brian Coester with Coester VMS, presenting you another webinar series, Navigating the New Appraisal Landscape and Beyond. This is actually an exact copy of a presentation I gave at the AMC conference down in Raleigh, North Carolina last week, and you can thank all the people over there who attended that. Very well attended and very good feedback. So we're just kind of providing this to you in this new digital world so that you have a good idea of what's going on and you're up to date. So navigating the new appraisal landscape. So let's start off by talking about the state of the appraisal industry. And that's something that sort of has been talked about for the last couple of years when you look at all the changes going on and looking kind of the evolution of the appraisal and management industry, or the appraisal industry as a whole. So the general consensus within the valuation space is that it's going through an evolution and revitalization. Current market expectations are looking for a faster, less expensive product that meets the secondary market guidelines. So the faster and less expensive product primarily has to do with the fact that it's moving to a new digital environment. So the 30, 45, 60-day closing time that was once standard at your big banks or your mortgage companies is now being challenged by independent mortgage bankers to get to 7-10 days. So to get to 7-10 days, how fast do you need the appraisal? A lot longer than 14 to 16 days, which is the turn time in some states. And they're really looking more for something in the 2 to 3 day range. From a price point standpoint, one of the issues is the appraisal is one of the only things paid outside of the loan or not through the transaction. It's an independent fee. It also needs to be paid no matter what. And it's one of those things that is also contributing to the idea of a less expensive product. Appraisal licensing is overcomplicated and has caused a continual decline of new talent in the business. License and training complications have contributed to delays in certain market areas, often not repeated. The training issue does not allow scalability within the AMC or the appraisal space. So when there's 1 or 2 appraisers in a certain market, or 5 or 6 appraisers in a certain market, they can't hire anybody when things get busy. As a result of that, that has contributed to delays because there's no scalability. And then lenders and investors and AMCs are looking for creative ways to use appraisal data to enhance their current offerings to borrowers and consumers. Lenders are also looking for ways to use the appraisal process to create a better experience for the consumer and realtor as we move into a digital lending environment. And that's something that cannot be overstated. The appraisal a lot of times is the only thing that prevents the borrower from going to another lender. Once that appraisal is inspected, they're pretty much off the street. So as a result of that, lenders are looking for ways to use the appraisal process to create a better experience. We have some things we're doing over here. Other AMCs are doing similar things, but they're using it as a creative way. And then the changes over the last few years have been centered around reducing costs and reducing turn time, as well as looking for an automated solution. So here's a timeline of the appraisal industry changes that I thought were relevant. And then when you look at these, a lot of these are around removing barriers for entry. One of the mistakes I think what happened in 2008 was the investors removed the ability for the trainees to inspect the property without a supervisor being present. To me, that contributed significantly to the decline of the trainees and appraisers in general, and also contributed to the issues we saw in 2015 and 2016 with appraisals being delayed. If you look at 2017, they updated the FDIC, the final rule, to raise the appraisal threshold on transactions, commercial transactions, from $250,000 to $500,000. That is primarily a result of the use of evaluations, and they want to make a little room for that. And then you look at the GSEs and then also the Coester Qualifications Board, and you can just see a general trend of loosening their requirements. And that's where you want to look at. You want to look at the general trend. You don't want to look at the one-off. You want to look at the general trend. Here's an example of the decreasing appraiser population. So the appraiser population has decreased about 2% and will continue. The changes done by the Appraisal Qualifications Board are designed to address some of that But then at the same time, you're still looking at a general trend, and you don't have the scalability factor. The scalability factor is what you're really looking for in increasing market conditions. Why are appraisals so problematic? I think this is a fair question, and I think it's a question that doesn't get asked enough, and or doesn't get addressed enough. There's too much oversight. So the reality is you have so many people now who are looking at things, who are looking at requirements, who are ensuring audits are being done. It's very difficult to understand what's really going on and how and how to simplify things, trying to get all these players on board. So you have the FDIC, you have the National Credit Union Association, you have the OCC, you have the OCC, you have the Federal Reserve Bank, you have FHFA, you have the CFPB, and you really have just a lot of people looking at this every single, as from an oversight perspective. Go to the next slide. All right, so when you look at Australia, our good buddies out near Asia, they're paying $185 for the equivalent of a 1004, and with the 2 to 3 day turn time. And you ask, what's the difference between Australia and US? And then our CFO Jyoti is from Australia, and she can contest to this. There's just more consistent underwriting criteria. So there's no overlays, consistent scope of work, so you don't have 20 different scopes of work associated with 20 different clients, all standardized, minimal revisions. And that's something that lenders need to take a better responsibility for. The multiple revisions on multiple issues associated cause problems. And then use of tablets and data feeds to deliver the reports, which is more of a seamless process. So current issues. So what are some of the current issues? So some of the current issues are defining what a federally rated transaction is. So what specifically is an FTR? Use of alternative valuations. Lenders continually question to keep their process in-house or the use of an appraisal management company. Now, generally speaking, I've never seen a lender keep their appraisal process in-house over an extended period of time. It just hasn't worked. I've seen people own appraisal management companies, buy in, joint ventures, all of those things. Just the idea, lender and an AMC, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it work. I haven't seen it work in-house on any national scale. If you're a lender lending in a couple counties or one geographic area, please keep it in-house. You have the ability to do that. There's a ton of good appraisers, and there's a ton of lenders that do that. But if you're a national lender, if you're a call center, you're going to need an AMC, and don't own it and don't have a proportion of it. It just tends not to work out. Dealing with appraisal fee disclosure and accuracies, that's a big issue. And then managing of appraisal turn times and customer experience. And then how the digital world is going to take over. And that's something that I think a lot of people are looking at. So what are the overall objectives? The overall objectives are reducing the turn times on appraisals, use of technology for mass data, and the use of trainees or alternative inspectors for scalability. That's really the overall objective. We had those 3 points in place where there was a 2 day overall turn time on a full inspection with 24-hour alternative product, and the ability to use technology for mass data evaluation, and then the use of trainees for an inspection alternative. I think the appraisal space would be in a pretty good space. Here's the current ecosystem when it comes to the appraisal. And this is something that I think a lot of lenders need to see and a lot of people need to see regarding the inefficiencies. So day 1, order entry. Day 2, appraiser schedules appraisal. And then 3 to 4 days later, the inspection takes place. 4 to 5 days later, the appraisal data research is comparables, and then they finally deliver the report. Okay. Revisions and underwriting. Add. So when you really look at it, the inefficiencies are here and here. The appraisal to delivery part is only a 3 to 4 day process, but you add the 2 days on to underwriting and revision correction, and then the scheduling of the appraisal. My personal opinion is what the future looks like is something more like this, where there's a pre-scheduled element, and then the QC is done via tablet when the appraiser still has it. So man versus machine. So what is big data? What does big data look like in the future? What is the machine element? So the machine element is going to be the analysis, the help collection of data, and then the review for consistency, and also the scheduling of the appraisal. The appraiser will still be very much involved in this process. Consumer education is also important. One of the things that I think a lot of people have missed on is educating the consumer on why appraisal is important, why they take so long, or why they cost so much, and or what is being done. What can I do to help? We have great infographics and great consumer education available to everybody. If you haven't checked it out, please visit www.coestervms.com and click on the Resource Center to check it out. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you guys so much. I went a little fast, and I did it on purpose